This should be a fairly short video, but I say that before and it ends up being 20 minutes long. With that said, I got myself another computer from my local FreeGeek, this Dell Latitude, for $5. Though technically it's now costing me about 35 because I had to buy a RAM for it, and I had to buy a little cable so I can actually connect my hard drive to the motherboard because I could not actually find the cable that this computer actually uses. So with that said, the reason why this was originally $5 is that it was in the Gaylord bin. And with the way FreeGeek works, or at least mine does, that if you find something in the Gaylord bin and you want to buy it, it's just $5. The reason why this one was in that bin is the speakers are apparently broken. But from what I've been able to test with, it actually seems to work completely fine. It works fine under Linux. I even got Windows to run externally, and it seems to work completely fine. So that little interconnect cable I was talking about came in, so now I'm actually going to set this thing up properly, so I'll be right back. Here's that little cable I was talking about. For some reason or other, I could not find it when I was looking around over my local FreeGeek. We even have a box specific for Dell stuff and these little Dell hard drive cable connectors and whatnot. I don't know why I couldn't find it, but I couldn't find it for the life of me. But eBay had one for $6 and I bought it, and well, it came in today. Normally when it comes to FreeGeek and recycling of these things, we pull the RAM, we pull the CMOS battery, and depending on how new the computer is, we even pull the Wi-Fi card. But considering how old this one is, apparently the Wi-Fi card was kept. But of course I did state that I had to buy the RAM. This is the RAM I bought. It's two 4-gig sticks, so I can have 8 gigs in total. It does not have a battery. The reason why I didn't buy a battery from FreeGeek also is because since I actually plan on using this Dell, if it works the way I think it does, again from testing it does work, that I want to have a brand new battery in this thing. Granted it's going to be third party because this is something I actually want to use on a fairly constant basis. You can tell this laptop is pretty old because the little ribbon cable right here doesn't really have any tolerances. But this thing actually has a weird little caddy that has a SATA to M-SATA adapter card and like a small little M-SATA drive. So technically this thing can handle a 2.5, but it's really only meant for an SSD due to this interconnected cable and whatnot. So that's why I took my 240 gig SSD and removed it from its little plastic shell, wrapped the actual PCB in duct tape so it doesn't short. That way so I can still close the lid up and not have too much of a bend in this little interconnected cable and whatnot. This is also the drive I used externally to test Windows on this thing, so theoretically it should boot right back up, but I'll have to put it back together and see. Alright, hard drive installed. Let's see what this thing does. I'll have to go into the BIOS so I can tell it to boot to the drive. So I should just go to the BIOS in a couple seconds. And it does. So I want to do that. Go to boot sequence. There's a hard drive itself, so it looks like it's already detected. So I'm actually just going to leave it as is, and I'm going to exit. Alright, got a hard drive indication light, which is something I miss a lot of when it comes to these newer computers. And it looks like it's going to be booting up completely fine. So, this is going to take a little bit to actually boot. I'll come back. Or it's going to boot up right now. I don't know. I'm just going to reinstall Windows in this thing in general. I just want to see if it'll still boot. I really don't have to reinstall Windows on this thing, but I'm going to anyways. But it looks like everything's going to be working just fine. Since Intel support system decided to pop up, I might as well show the specs of this thing. It has a i5-4300U, Intel HD graphics, 8 gigs of RAM, and that's more or less it. Now when it comes to a laptop like this, on sites like Amazon and eBay, it sells for about $250 still. Now, when it comes to FreeGeek, I'm just spitting numbers right now, but I'm basing off how these things normally go for over at FreeGeek. I would say this one right here will probably be sold for maybe like 130, 150 dependent. So if I can maintain under the $100 price, i.e. just a new battery, then I got myself a fairly competent little daily use laptop for under $100, and it's in pretty decent shape, and it's fairly decently spec'd out. It actually plays Sims 4 fairly fine. It even plays Sea of Thieves, about on par with my mid 2012 MacBook Pro with a dedicated GPU. To think this thing's actually just as powerful as that when it comes to the GPU is pretty funny. But with that said, I'm going to reinstall Windows and come back. Initially, I use this little thumb drive right here for a live Linux installation so I can actually see what this computer can do. And as I'm downloading some software to wipe it, because Windows doesn't like Linux, obviously. And one thing I do note is the cooling fan is definitely making a little bit more racket than it should. But other than that, it does work completely fine, so I'll probably eventually have to buy a replacement fan for this thing. But again, since I got this thing for so cheap, I'm happy with it as it currently sits. Windows never cease to be a joke of an operating system. With that said, I am not switching over to Linux. But other than that weird little glitch, it seems to be working completely fine. So I'm going to go through the process of installing Windows, turn off my foot here when that's finally done because we all know that's annoying. And I don't want to be seen as wings of retardation or DS-tard. Alright, Windows is all up to date, so the next step is to download all the stuff from Dell Support Assistant. And apparently I also have to update the BIOS. So, yay, that's going to be fun. But with that said, so far the computer is working completely fine. There is one more thing I do want to bring in, my secondary desktop. I have a 2 terabyte spool drive, and yesterday I thought it was on the fritz because it would not copy certain files over properly. And lo and behold, there is an actual issue with this thing. So I'm going to have to RMA this drive. I can't have this caution warning on a drive I actually use to store my data. So to prove that, let me go to my backup computer for all my crap and show you what I mean when it comes to a good drive. Turns out I need to have a battery installed into this thing to update the BIOS, but since I'm not doing anything mission critical on this thing, I'll leave it as is until I can get in the battery. Now when it comes to the speakers though, they sound completely fine for what they are. So what the issue was that the tech was experiencing over on my local FreeGeek, I can't seem to replicate. Though every now and then if they hit the right pitch, they rattle like crazy. I'm guessing that might be what she was experiencing. And the only reason why she put this thing in the Gaylord bin was because we have loads of Dell laptops. So the loss of one to a Gaylord bin is literally a drop in the bucket when it comes to laptops we got over there. We got a heap ton of laptops to go through. So as of right now, this is a perfectly functional Dell laptop that I got for $5. Technically though, like I said, I had to buy RAM and a battery and a little cable for it, but the general initial upfront cost is only $5. And I say I got quite lucky with this thing, especially considering it actually handles YouTube fairly fine. Though I'm playing at 720p 60. If I try to do 1080p 60, sometimes it can handle it, and other times it just can't. But that's to be expected with something of this age. It only has like a 3rd gen i5, so the fact that you can even handle YouTube in the first place at the quality I'm playing it in the first place is quite surprising. With that said though, it does play Minecraft completely fine, and it does handle Sea of Thieves a lot better than you would think. Granted, it's not 60 FPS, but it actually does play Sea of Thieves, which is really surprising. So with that said, let's actually finish this video off on the hard drives I was talking about earlier. Now, since I don't have a NAS and I really don't feel like going that route just yet, I just have a little cheap Dell small microcomputer and my two backup drives, the original and the backup drive for the backup drive. I basically cloned this drive and then I deleted what I didn't need from the clone so I can free this one up. But with that said, these two drives though, they show up completely fine in Crystal Disk Mark. Obviously the main boot drive shows up. Here's the original backup drive, and then the backup drive for the backup drive. One thing you'll note is that the allocation count is basically the same throughout, and yet both these two drives are showing up as completely fine, while the 2 terabyte in my desktop is showing up as caution. So I'm going to RMA that thing because it should be theoretically still within warranty, and I was able to manage to pull all my actual data off that drive prior to actually doing anything with it, so I have all that crap backed up also. So with that said, I think that's pretty much the end of this video, unless I want to show that laptop playing Minecraft and Sea of Thieves, which will more or less happen. So with that said, I guess I will show Minecraft running on the laptop. For something as old as this Dell Latitude, it handles Minecraft quite fine. It's definitely not 60 FPS, but this is more than playable. Now this is with Optifine and Impact installed because I do play on an Anarchy server. Though the Anarchy server I play on is basically dead. But it handles Minecraft completely fine, at least 12.2. I think the newer revisions of Minecraft on something this old run like ass. So I might as well play the latest revisions just to see if that's the case. But if you're playing older revisions for Anarchy servers and whatnot, its computer handles Minecraft surprisingly well. Well, it seems to handle at least the main menu. Let's see what happens when I try to actually start a world. Okay, yeah, it's gonna be painful. I'll come back in like 5 minutes. It is nothing but pain on newer revisions of Minecraft. And technically, I wasn't wrong about saying I'll be back in 5 minutes. Because I'm 2 minutes 30 into this video, and it just now finally finished. So it takes about 3 minutes just for it to start the load and actually load into a world and whatnot. And the frame rate, you don't even need a frame rate counter. No, it's garbage. This is not playable worth a stink. Until it's done loading in, apparently. So if you're going to play newer revisions of Minecraft on something like this, something like Optifine is a massive must. But it does technically, I mean, it handles earlier versions completely fine. So with that said, I guess last will be Sea of Thieves. If you're wondering how well the Wi-Fi on this thing works, it's halfway decent. It's more or less what I currently get right now, and this is wireless. This is on the 5G, and that is on my new wireless router. This ASUS router, which you really can't see, that I got from, again, my local FreeGeek. I think I got this for $65 or something like that. It's definitely worth the purchase. It's a fantastic router. But again, internet speeds are pretty much exactly what I thought they would be. This is more than adequate. I'm pretty certain I'll get higher download speeds if I did a hardwire, but this is a laptop after all, and again, it's a low-end one. So the fact that I'm even playing Sea of Thieves on this thing in the first place really shouldn't be happening, but it can technically play it. Took quite a while for my character to load in, but it's finally loaded in. So actual quality and whatnot is 540p at complete and utter potato. So it shouldn't take too long for it to find a session, considering there's a big bump in the player base due to the latest game update. So I'll come back when it finds me an actual session. As you can tell, the frame rate's not that good. It's playing better than I thought it would, but it's definitely not really technically playable. But considering I don't really interact with the PvP function of this game, it really doesn't matter to me. Also, I have a fairly high-end gaming laptop, but I'm just more or less seeing what this little laptop here can actually do, because again, I got it for technically $5. In the open ocean, I can get to this cinematic frame rate that the ponies like, 25 FPS, or in this case, 26 FPS. So if you're a pony and you want to have that cinematic experience, just get a Dell Latitude E7440 and play a Sea of Thieves. You'll get that glorious cinematic experience. I'll be sitting here on my Series S in my main gaming desktop with 200 or so FPS on this thing, and I think this plays at 30. But again, if you're a Sony pony, get this thing. You'll get that glorious cinematic experience. If you want even more cinematic experience, try and play one of your pony games on this. Yeah, I know I got into the console war bullshit, but I think I just want to end this video on a joke. But in all seriousness though, I absolutely like this little Dell Latitude. Again, it works completely fine, and the fact that it even plays Seas of Thieves in the first place is actually quite surprising. But when it comes to actual day-to-day use for this thing, I'm going to use it for like Sims, anime, YouTube, and light stuff and whatnot. Not something heavy like Sea of Thieves. So I think that's pretty much it for this video.